Hey there, it's Mario here, and in this video I wanted to share with you guys a couple of tips on how to gain muscle, how to bulk without gaining fat. And I mentioned the word bulk there, and that's really a term that I don't like to use so much when it comes to describing gaining phases, because it really is associated with those off-season bodybuilders that are full of drugs and they are gaining an excess amount of body fat, they're gaining a lot of mass, and for us naturals, I mean, this simply isn't the most viable approach. I mean, it usually yields terrible consequences where we have to cut very long and it just doesn't work. So when I really say bulking, I mean lean gaining. I mean gaining very slowly. So that is a point also of this video, is going to be to show you what does it really look like, and a quick scenario on for who this lean gaining is actually a good approach. And I see a lot of guys trying to do this without really analyzing their situation first. So who can be gaining muscle without gaining fat, and for who is this a viable option? So first thing we want to look at, what is nutrition when it comes to gaining muscle? What is training when it comes to gaining muscle? So nutrition is simply a permission for your body to gain muscle. And the amount of muscle you're gonna gain depends on your training age and on how quality your program is, how high quality of your training work or how your workouts are, as an acute effect on how well you perform in the gym on every single day, how much effort you put, but also in like the overall kind of grand scheme of things, how good your training plan is set up. And if you're looking for an awesome training plan, you can download one of my lean and strong workout guides in the description below. Really cool plan to get you started. And going back to nutrition, we said nutrition is simply a permission for your body to grow. So once you have, let's say, a decent amount of energy for your body to build muscle and a lot of building blocks through eating high protein, any excess amount of calories will get stored as fat. And this is actually not a very static thing. This is a very dynamic thing as well, and this is called caloric partitioning. So the leaner an individual is to begin with, the more of the calories that you give the individual will go toward building muscle mass and less will get stored as fat. So this is a very critical point that a lot of people don't understand, is that by being overweight, by having a very high body fat percentage, then you ultimately will be gaining more fat as well as you're eating a caloric surplus, or even getting a mild surplus as well. So for a lean gaining phase to work, you really have to be lean to begin with. And I think that most people that are watching this video won't be as lean as it's required for you to really dedicate yourself to a lean gaining phase, because we're really talking about being 7 to 10% of body fat, like really lean. And at that point you can choose to reverse diet and go into a lean gaining phase, and that is a very long phase where you're simply giving your body a little bit of extra calories to be able to fuel your performance in the gym, also build muscle, but you're not optimizing muscle gains, right? And another key point when it comes to lean gaining without gaining excess amount of fat is that it depends on your training age, if this isn't the most optimal or not approach. So let's say you're an advanced lifter. Well, for you, lean gaining is probably the only approach, because you're gonna be gaining so little amount of muscle that for you, it's any other approach will result in gaining too much fat. I'm gonna assume that most of people here are in the intermediate stage, which is about 2 years, maybe to 5 years of training at most, right? So in this phase, I believe that the lean gaining phase might not be the best option for most of you. And for who is this an option? Well, it is an option for guys that want to stay lean year round. So if you manage to cut down to like 7-10% body fat and you really want to stay lean all year round, you don't necessarily care to optimize the amount of muscle mass you're gaining, and you're okay by sacrificing a little bit of those muscle gains in return for not gaining any fat, then this is a viable option for you. Or let's say someone just wants to stay at the same body weight, they want to stay, maybe gain a little bit of body weight, but want to stay in the same weight class, and lean gaining is a good approach for them because it will allow them to have enough calories to train and progress in the gym without progressive overload, getting stronger, which is a very critical part of all of these phases, is simply getting stronger over time, lifting more volume, getting stronger progressive overload is a key component of every workout plan. And this kind of approach will allow you to eat just enough to be able to recover in the gym, to be able to lift heavy, progress with your weight, add to your total. If you're a powerlifter, if you're a bodybuilder, you can like do more sets, do more reps, and with more weight possibly. And this is a good option, right? You want to stay the same weight class and you kind of hover around that and simply gain slowly. And for who is this not an option? Well, this is not an option for someone who is not lean to begin with, as I said, because when you kind of commit to the lean gaining phase, you're going to gain so little muscle mass, and you're already going to be kind of above the body fat level that you're happy with. So it's really not an approach, because you're not going to notice any changes, right? You could be lifting for a year or two and you're not going to notice much change in your physique. And that is a problem, right? I mean, I think a lot of people in general don't have enough patience to pull off a simple lean gaining phase or like that reverse dieting phase, because what it really requires is for you to be very, very meticulous with your tracking. So once you lean down to that 7 to 10% body fat, you need to get out of that very, very, very slowly. So I'm talking about maybe getting 100 calorie extra on a day, maybe trying to get to your last refeed amount and just slowly trying to build that up, basically being at maintenance calorie rate. So you need to get back to maintenance. The weight is going to fluctuate a couple of weeks. That can also make you go crazy, and I would really recommend having a coach at this stage to, I guess, just keep you grounded and keep you objective. So your goal is to get at maintenance and kind of stay there, and then slowly try to push that maintenance a little bit higher and higher, while also, I guess, optimizing your gains in the gym, right? While keeping mostly an eye on gym performance rather than on the weight scale, because the weight scale will not be changing that much. So the weight scale will be fairly consistent, because as we said, this is a slow process. This is one of those things that you simply have to trust the process. And it's kind of like something that a lot of us throw around, but it's could you trust the process that, let's say, at 12 months from now, you're going to compound to about a 3 or 4 pound increase, right, of lean body mass. That's a very insignificant amount when you look at what's going to make a difference in your physique, right? And when you look at like a year or two of training, I mean, it is really something that will require a tremendous amount of patience. And that is why I don't necessarily advise anybody to go for a lean gaining approach if their goal is to optimize muscle mass and get a big change, right? Get a decent amount of change in their physique, at least with a couple of years of training. As an advanced, as I said, if you're an advanced lifter, I mean, feel free to go for lean gaining. That's pretty much your only option. But as an intermediate, you're much better off by going with a controlled bulk and a short cut cycle, right? So if you've reached that 7 to 10% of body fat, so without you like going into any complicated calculations, you simply find your maintenance again, stay there a little bit, but then you look at how your training gauge is doing, and let's say you're an intermediate, that means that you can gain about 1% of your body weight per month. Simply aim to gain that 1% of body weight a month, right? And that is going to allow you to maximize the amount of muscle mass you're going to build. You will gain a little bit of fat mass, and that is fine, because you just simply let's say you set a deadline, or you set like an upper limit of the body fat you kind of are comfortable with. Most people, to be fair, won't even notice you switching from like 8 to 12% of body fat. Like if you really care about how other people are perceiving you, most people will not notice any difference whatsoever. It's someone between 8% of body fat and 12% body fat. They're actually, I mean, I've been getting so many various opinions. Someone will say I look leaner when I'm actually heavier. Someone will say I look like fatter and bulkier when I'm lower body fat percentage. I mean, it's very subjective, so really don't worry about that. What I would kind of recommend is having an upper limit of where you're gonna do a mini cut. So let's say your upper limit is 12% body fat. Once you kind of reach that 12% body fat, bam, mini cut for 4 to 6 weeks, lean down again, and then you go back into that slower bulk, which will, if you do it properly, if you do it controlled, could last up to 16, maybe 24 weeks in some cases. And in those 24 weeks, you have more freedom with food. You actually have to be a little bit less rigorous with your tracking. You can eat out more compared to that lean gaining phase where you're like, oh shit, I went 300 calories above my maintenance. I better do like an extra session of cardio. You know, that's pretty much what lean gaining means, and it also means including cardio and really being on top of everything, while the slow controlled bulk kind of thing is, I guess, a little bit more freedom and also more gains over the course of like the first 3-4 years, because you still have that genetic potential to gain a lot of muscle mass, right? So that's an optimal approach for intermediates that I would recommend almost in all of the cases if the person isn't, I guess, if it really isn't paranoid about gaining fat. And I see a lot of guys being paranoid and being scared of gaining too much fat. And there's really nothing to be scared about. Let's say in the first couple of weeks you're aiming to get back to that maintenance, you regain a couple of pounds, you're like, oh shit, I'm getting fucking fat. But it's really just glycogen, maybe a little bit of water weight you regain because you ate a little bit of extra carbs. The guys instantly go back into a cut. But really, when you do it controlled, when you have that, I guess, a little bit of more self-trust that you can really lean down, that you can cut down if you want to, I would highly recommend looking into that slower bulk, more controlled bulk, rather than aiming to minimize the amount of fat mass. That will also hinder the amount of muscle mass you're going to gain. And as I said, it's not going to be an approach where you're going to see visible difference month to month, right? It's going to be very minor difference, mostly in training. So to kind of recap, is that you don't need to be afraid of gaining a little bit of fat if you're also optimizing for muscle gains. And I see a lot of guys making this mistake. I made this mistake a couple of years ago. I was quite paranoid with myself. I was like, shit, I'm gonna get fat, and like people will hate me. I'm gonna not be able to do my selfies. And it really is it is kind of a horrible place to be at, because you never really commit to either bulking, and then you're always kind of one step away from cutting again, which doesn't allow you to really push yourself in the gym. You can't progress with strength, and you're being held back. Like, you're holding yourself back, and that is a big problem that I see a lot of guys just being scared of going for that lean gaining phase, or scared to eat more to begin with, right? Because it's kind of like an eating disorder in general, because we're just afraid that we're gonna gain fat because we work so hard to lose the fat in the first place. I kind of get that, but it really comes down to committing and going for that slower bulk, and accepting a little bit of fat gain in just simply for the long-term more muscle mass that you're gonna keep, mostly all of it, if you do it properly on a cut. So I hope you guys got value out of a little bit of these bulking tips, and I hope it cleared up some of these things that are circling around the internet, which was gaining fat, building muscle at the same time. Also made a video about that, for who is that possible. That's going to be in the description below for you guys as well. In general, I think this is pretty much everything you need to know in terms of bulking, like an overall big picture view. I mean, there's obviously a little bit of tiny details there to work out, and you can also check that video, how fast you can build muscle. That's a really critical video for when you're setting up your bulk. So that's going to be in the description below as well. So if you guys have any questions on this, definitely leave them in the comments below, and we can discuss, we can share some ideas. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to click subscribe below, share with your friends. I see these videos getting shared a lot, which makes me quite happy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.